You have seen Sorry to Bother You. You wrote a very good piece about it.
Thank you.
Tell me about it.
It's a film written and produced by Boots Riley, who I am not cool enough to really have a lot of awareness of him before this film. I
You're
will
just finding out
confess.
about him.
I'm just finding out. My boyfriend tried to hit me to things when it
Oh,
became relevant.
I literally misunderstood what you said there. It's like, whoa. So your boyfriend hit you because you weren't familiar with Boots Riley. Wow.
He tried
I
to
mean,
hit me
I
as a
really
Berkeley
loathe
person.
that. And on the other hand, I was like, wow, look at leftists getting serious about their content. It's like,
No,
you
he-
never heard the coup? What the fuck?
He informed me as
Yeah.
someone who spent time in Berkeley about the coup. But, you know, it's a film. Do you want to just talk about briefly what it's about?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a film
I mean,
about
I think a lot of people have a sense, but like, go ahead.
I think so, probably
Yeah.
also.
No, but give us a brief synopsis for sure.
This young guy, he is a millennial who doesn't have a lot of financial opportunities. He seems to be unemployed. He's been living in his uncle's garage for some unspecified period of time. He isn't able to pay his uncle rent. The uncle himself is about to get his house foreclosed on. It's kind of dire straits when his friend gets him a job at a telemarketing company. It's a minimum wage type job in the basement of a building that's pretty bleak. His girlfriend also gets a job there until one day another coworker teaches him how to use a quote unquote white voice, which enables him to be incredibly successful and skyrocket to the top of the company. At which point he
has an exceptionally good white voice.
Right. And the white voice isn't about, this kind of 90s BET comic view caricature of a white voice. It's supposed to be this voice that expresses this kind of aspirational kind of contentment, this sense that you don't actually have a care in the world, that you're worry free, if you will.
I think they say your bills are paid or something.
Your
like
bills
that.
are paid. It's a very class mediated definition of race.
Yeah,
it's not like it isn't like
exactly.
Like, what's going on here?
I mean,
Def
it also
Comedy
sounds
Jam.
like
It does. Well, that was actually what I was going to say.
It's David Cross.
I had a minor quibble about that actually, because I loved the distinction that Danny Glover character drew, and then David Cross started talking. And I was like,
maybe it should have
that's the
sounded
voice.
like
I was going to say
should have sounded like Armie Hammer.
Yeah, I mean, actually, yeah. I mean, right.
Who plays the villain later in the movie.
Right, but I mean, that actually, right, he did have that voice, right?
Yeah.
And David Cross's voice was great, but it was like, this sounds very Martin Lawrence-y to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so he does the voice, he skyrockets to the top.
Yeah, and at the top, no spoilers, but he realizes that there are significant, huge, overwhelming ethical implications for the products he's being asked to sell. And meanwhile, all of his friends down in the basement level have organized with the help of this organizer played by Stephen Yeun from Walking Dead, and they've gone on strike. So he's got both the ethical concerns of the things he's being asked to sell up top, and also the ethics of crossing the picket line every day to go into work and earn all this money. But the money enables him to help out his uncle, pay off his house, and move into a new apartment and have some kind of personal dignity, get a new car, things that he wasn't able to do before. Take his girlfriend out, feel like a valued and productive member of society. And that's one of the things that I really liked about the movie, that it wasn't just that he made the money and got material things. He made the money and he was good at his job, and that mattered to him.
Psychological dignity.
Yeah, because when you live in a world where that tells you that your personal value is so tied to your professional value, it's more than just being able to earn an income. It's that satisfaction you get by being from being told that you matter.
Right.
And so that meant that for a period of time in the movie, I mean, you don't begrudge him immediately when he chooses to persist in this job, because he really was depressed
I didn't
in the
begrudge
beginning.
him at all. I think it was a very good thing across the board in that movie, was that it was and it did reflect, I mean, Boots Riley is a communist, and it that movie was not about individual sort of perfection or heroism persisting against circumstances at all.
Yeah.
Including down to whatever. I think if people get upset about spoilers, they have to deal with that. So we will try to not
right.
give you all the
I mean,
spoilers.
It's your show. We can do it whatever way you want.
Well, I don't need to like tell them the twist, but like we're gonna talk about it, and
Sure.
you know, so and this isn't like this isn't a a fucking I don't know Agatha Christie novel. Like this is not like, oh man, you discovered capitalism was bad. The whole mystery was blown, right? But I think that the fact that they, as an example, labor organizer, I was talking about this on Champagne Sharks with T, and I've had this conversation with a couple other people, and it was always came up like, why was it that he had this kind of like sort of, I don't even know if I would say honestly, I don't even think it was sleazy, but he had this like other angle, like this other sexual like interest in the guy's girlfriend, right? And for me, my interpretation was just really simple. It was like, he's a good organizer, he's right about what they need to do, and he's also like a dude.
Yeah, he was.
And
cute.
that's it. Like that it just reflected lack of, I mean, and frankly, conversely, even the real evil guy had a story of self-justification. I thought the movie very much across the board was pretty good at like, it's about systems, not people. That really is the emphasis. That was my read.
My only qualm with the Stephen Young character was that he didn't end up with her permanently at the end. I was like, look, obviously
Bree was robbed of a cucking.
Why is that got to be a cucking? Look,
Well, it literally was a cucking. I mean, why does it? I don't know.
No, they like per Tessa Thompson's point. I'm sorry, I forgot the names of all of these characters in the movie. But per Tessa Thompson's point, they broke up. They weren't on a break. It wasn't ambiguous. Cash, Lakeith Greenfield, is that his name?
Yeah. I forget
his character.
I forget his
Stanfield.
name.
Sorry, I'm reading off the
Stanfield.
piece of paper in front of you. His character acted up. He's
a great actor.
He did. I want that to be true. I don't know.
Really?
But do you think he's just acting as himself? Because I watched him in a bunch of interviews to write this review.
I mean, presumably he as himself is like an extremely successful actor is probably a little bit more.
I don't want to diminish
grounded.
him, and I don't want to do that thing where a lot of people do with black actors, where they're they'll be like in The Wire and they'll be like, oh, that's not acting, they're just that way, but they're like a Juilliard trained actor playing like a gangster. I don't want to do that thing. But also I read this long and interesting profile of him and how his acting career emerged and how it was very spontaneous and didn't involve a lot of training, and he kind of just kept getting typecast. And the three characters that I know him from, like it's Get Out, Atlanta, and now this,
Right.
are all kind of muted, kind of low key, kind of laid back.
He had to do a lot more in this. I mean, just because he was he was the main draw. But the one thing I will concede to you is I think a lot of why he works as an actor is honestly you just empathize with him, like in the sense,
Totally.
not even necessarily, or actually maybe not as positively. He has like you don't want bad things to befall him because he seems like a very nice guy.
And he's
I don't know if that
authentic.
makes sense, but there's a lot of like he leaps out in all of these different roles, and you're just like, oh, please, could you like give him a break? Because he just seems like the last person that deserves it.
Well, in this review, they were saying this article about his life or whatever was saying that he's very has these emotive eyes and all this stuff. But I think it's just that he's very authentic. And even in the there was an anecdote where a casting director or somebody was said to him, I'm just going to save your picture because you have this look. You have that like down and out look. Like you have this like struggle bus look about you.
Well, that's kind of true.
And it just feels like he's getting cast as a type, and that's not necessarily his fault. And maybe he has even more range.
So
than
his
we've
next
seen.
role, he needs to play like a fucking gangster or like or like a sex fiend.
Like
he needs
just an animated, perky. I don't. I just
can
I'd
you
be
do
curious to
animated
know
and
if he
perky
can
again,
do-
please, Brie? I like that. I
All
like your.
I'm just saying, like that's what we
She's
haven't.
just like, you
haven't
know what I
seen
mean?
from him.
Animated, perky.
I mean, I haven't seen his.
Well, wait, I have a
full
question. I want to
iris.
get back to the bigger picture of the movie, but I'm just want to we're not going to get personal, but I just want to establish a Brie standard here, because I have to be honest. A lot of women, and I am not going to say how I know this, I don't think they take like the tight, technically you've been broken up with for 3 hours rule quite as literally as you do.
First of all, we don't know how much time passed.
Oh, stop.
in
You
that
always
movie.
do this. It
No,
was
but
very
seriously,
short period of time.
Even if it were a short period of time, like he was the bad actor in the relationship. If she had broken up with
like
him and
driving
then
her around in a nice car and taking her out for dinners. What a terrible guy. What an asshole.
he literally was a strike breaker.
Well, that's the politics.
That's the whole point. She was mad at him for his politics. You can't be mad at her. She was
No, but she was conversely the paradox, and actually T made this point to me, which I agreed with. Like, when you go to her art space world where she's doing this, like, frankly silly performance, and like there's like this idea that it's really very elevated, and it's not. She's just kind of being debased. He's the only one. Like, even when he's the strike breaker who's giving into all of his indulgences, he's still the only one in that more elevated environment who can kind of make the obvious moral call because he cares about her.
I think that scene was very difficult to read. If I were going to put my finger on what I thought was the weakest part of the movie, it would be that scene. Now, I've heard Boots Riley say that he thought that her character was the closest to representing him. And I've heard him talk about, and I read about this in my piece, about the limits of kind of political art and how if it's not connected to a movement, then it's useless and like literally and figuratively performative. And so I don't know what to do with that scene, but it could be read as, I don't know, paternalistic. Like, I don't know how to read his intervention on her behalf in that room, because the movie didn't come back and prove him right that he should have intervened. You know, she never had some big wake up call where she was like, you're right, I didn't like how that went down, or I didn't feel like I got what I wanted to get out of that performance. For all we know, that's exactly how she wanted it to happen. She got a lot of money, she sold a lot of pieces, you know, advanced her political agenda, and everything was cool. So I feel like that was a loose end.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I had a different kind of read on it, but I think it's totally fair to say that wasn't a closed loop at all. Yeah. That wasn't a closed loop at all. But just to be clear, first couple of hours, we're good to go.
If you are the person who was broken up with,
wait a second.
If you're the person who's broken up with, then you don't have to sit around waiting for that.
Didn't she break up with him? Didn't she break up with him?
Well, because of trash behavior on his part.
Yeah, so you're basically just, it's always the man's fault. That's where we're at. Yeah, it's just always the man's fault.
He literally was a strike breaker. What kind of politics are on the Michael Brooks show where we're defending the strike breaker?
I'm not.
No. Organizer.
I'm just trying to make the rules really clear. That's what I'm trying to do.
This guy.
I have totally been
was
of the.
I
have always.
Organizer.
He wasn't that cool. I have always practiced the policy of whenever that has technically gone down, oh yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I just wanted frankly Briahna Joy buy-in on that. I think as soon as the text goes out, you, me, frowny face, you're good to go.
Here's the rule.
That's what I think.
You can do what you want to do in any circumstances. Sorry, these are like super slippery today. In any circumstances, but you just have to live with the consequences of what you do. It's like when people say, like, are you allowed to hook up with a friend's ex? Sure. But you have to be like, you have to accept the fact that maybe you're not ever going to be friends with that friend again.
My board doesn't work. Yeah, no, that's true. Well, okay.
And I agree. She should have went with the organizer. Totally.
She should have stayed with him. I feel like they let them kiss and let them have sex because they were making up for that Romeo must die
moment. They didn't have sex.
They totally did.
She and the organizer?
Did.
I think she said she...
No, she said she did everything but.
Everything but
like I think
the kitchen sink,
I don't think she went in. I don't think they technically. By Bill Clinton
his
definition,
reaction was that they did.
I don't think they went. They
All
had
right.
sex. I think they.
Regardless.
I think. Well, no. We're figuring something out of court.
Regardless.
I think it definitely depends on. Was I the only person who, when Bill Clinton said it depends on what is, was like that? Exactly.
I was
That's
like
an awesome
8 years
point.
old and not thinking about it.
You didn't see it later?
I didn't come back to the country till 2001. There was a different scandal afoot.
Right. There was other stuff going on. There was a little more heavy stuff than determining if blowjob constituted sex.
But I do think that scene was like payback for Aaliyah the non-kiss in Romeo Must Die, which I've never
I've
actually
never seen Romeo Must
But like there's
Die. I
this
have no
whole
idea
thing
what
where they
that
won't let
is.
Asian male characters be the love interest
Oh,
and
I
actually
see.
interact.
I see.
So that was the great like
I see.
Blasian love moment of cinematic history.
Well, if
And this
that's
is
the case, then it really wasn't nearly enough then.
And they should
If that was the point, because then you're in that limited case, you're totally right. Because if the point was to be like, here's an Asian guy who gets to like fuck the girl, then they should have given him a lot. It should have, yeah.
And a girl who gets to fuck the super woke sign slinging union organizer.
What's this? Oh, sign sling.
Yeah, with the little
I don't know how cool
balloons.
that was. I think
I thought it was
we
pretty
might be
cool.
getting a little bit of
Me and my X chromosomes over here. We're gonna or my the fact that I am love. All right. that I am the only one in the room, I believe, who likes men anyway. I'm going to weigh in on this.
Okay, no, that's all territory to you on that. I just wanted to know the technical definition. So, on a more serious note, you think this film synthesized capital and race in a really smart way?
Yeah, that's the best part.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I think it is,
I almost don't even care how good the movie is or how funny it is or how it is all of those things. But what made me sit there with my mouth agape was the fact that I was watching a movie where the central plot point was about organizing and collective action, and that it wasn't a movie about poverty and people in dire straits where one individual by their wits and personal intelligence manages to make their way out and beat the system. You contrasted it with
the Will Smith movie.
Yeah, Pursuit of Happiness from like 10 years ago or so, where it's a biopic about a man who was homeless for a period of time, sleeping in the train station in San Francisco, also set in San Francisco in the Bay Area. And who managed to get this internship at a hedge fund or something and work his way to the top and, save his whole family, which is great. It was a moving movie. I enjoyed it. But this is a movie in which you saw it didn't matter that the protagonist was really, really good at what he did, that he was a genius. He was able to get himself out because he was exceptional at what he did. Everybody won at the end of the movie because everybody banded together. And it wasn't just that he escaped a system and got himself into another worse but better compensated system. They were able to actually change their conditions.
Sorry to bother
you.
I think that's very open-ended, how it ended. I mean, they were taking the
they
right steps, but we
strike.
don't know if they're going to win.
Well, we don't know if they're going to overturn the entire capitalist government. But
I think that's actually, I think that's true. But I think the big question part out of the movie really is like, I left it as, this is how it is. If you get real about it, maybe you have a chance. But definitely not like there was any type of inevitability of like a nice ending for people.
Are you Killmonger is writing this and saying that because there was like a 5-minute scene at the end where there was like the community organizing center that means like how T does the thing where because there's just the end of the movie there's a little clip where he's
No, I'm talking literally about the end of the movie. It's open-ended. We don't know. That's literally the case.
I think that what I'm talking about is the fact that we know that they won the strike and there's a conversation about them all going back to work because they won whatever conditions they had asked for. Like that's my point. And you can call that a minor victory, but in the grand scheme of a world in which labor gets no attention from Democrats in the public sphere, where the idea that there's anything that you can actually do to change your conditions, people feel like they're completely without tools as to how to change their conditions other than making it big because they're going to be a musician or a basketball star or a lawyer or something ridiculous,
something ridiculous. Yes.
Something ridiculous. Like this, it was felt so empowering that you could do something just attainable and get yourself out of a bind and that you didn't have to do it alone. And this wasn't sugarcoated. This was treated as a natural, ordinary thing that happened in the course of this movie. And that at a certain point you were rooting for the strike almost as a protagonist more than you were rooting for any individual person.
Well, that's definitely achieved that. I mean, literally, this would be a plot, definitely a plot. This would be an actual plot spoiler, and I will spare people this, even though I really don't care. But the very last part of the movie does not deal with that. It deals with the next layer of what? No, literally it does. So I mean, there's a lot of question marks in terms of like where we're going to go from here, because at least in his case, he already had been defeated in a pretty significant way. So we'll see.
The end ends with them. I mean,
It does. It always flips back. It's a duality. It's not like I didn't leave the movie with a pessimistic read at all. And I think that was very refreshing and very much in contrast actually to a lot of movies that get a rap of being socially conscious. They're usually just various forms of poverty porn that leave you being like, oh my God, I should just do as many, just have as much fun as possible here because that's it.
Yeah.
But I think that, no, I actually, in fact, I'm saying it as a compliment. I think it really pulled off, really underscoring how disgusting things are, how corrupted, how much of a serious uphill battle it is, and also was like, and it's totally achievable, and it can be achieved in these specific ways, and here's a taste of it. I think it actually did that very well. But I didn't leave thinking like, oh, cool, we got this. I thought like, maybe that was a good step in the right direction.
I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think that I'm saying that either. What I'm saying is that it showed that organizing works.
Yes,
and in
I
a
think that's
world
definitely true. And he said as much in interviews.
Filled with Afro-pessimism, which relates back to this ridiculous Twitter spat that I'm in right now. It's like we're in a world where people have this deterministic view of race and racism and struggle. And there's this weird investment that people seem to have in the perpetual nature of the struggle, the inevitable and unending nature of racism. And I find a class analysis, I think part of why I'm drawn to it so much, in conjunction obviously with a racial analysis, is because I find that there is an optimism there that just doesn't exist in a racial essentialized framework. And that's been my ongoing critique of a number of prominent Black intellectuals and the white public intellectuals that echo them.
I can't explain the Black intellectuals, but my strong suspicion of white intellectuals who echo that in such a limited way. I think in some cases, look, it's not a bad thing for white people to take racism seriously. So that's very defensible and correct. I also just get a sneaking suspicion. I mean, I said this to T because we were contrasting it with Get Out, which I think Get Out's a great movie. Get Out is actually technically probably a much better movie, frankly.
Yes, it is.
Right? Like if we're talking on that level, it's a very,
very tight and coherent and just every part of it smart and works perfectly together.
Precisely. So if we're talking on that technical level. But the thing about Get Out, one that always struck me when I first saw Get Out, I was like, this movie is so good and so funny that like the Bradley Whitford character in real life would love this movie, which is why it's so devastating. But I also think that there is a way in which the essentialized inevitability analysis of anything, by the way, allows, it allows really very relatively, frankly, racially and financially privileged people to perform secular Christian penance without putting any material risk on the table. And that is really, to me, like, I think just the unending, Mark Blythe, and it's funny doing conversations with him because it's not like a significant gulf, but I mean, he's from Scotland. Like there is just like a certain kind of change in frame, and growing up under Thatcherism and being blue collar and escaping economically, but having a much broader structural understanding. And his joke that he always says to me, he's like, okay, like I'm a 50-something white guy. I'm an econ professor. I'm upper middle class. I'm straight. All the categories. He's like, I'm super privileged. I acknowledge that. I can keep all my money, right? And he's like, and he was saying like it's the extent to which in his experience that the implicit answer to that is yes is a very big problem. So that's my read on the white side. It's like, who doesn't want to simultaneously have a certain ethos of ethics and sacrifice without any of the actual follow through of, because again, sorry to bother you. Also think did a good job of being like, yeah, like going on strike is fucking scary. Like I didn't, and especially frankly, I think it caught him really perfectly in an individual sense. He had an absolute right to be like, look, You guys don't have much to lose. I do. That's in a
but that's real.
neoliberal
That's the
environment. That's the trap.
That's the
but
trap.
It's exactly the
golden
trap.
handcuffs,
And we
that's the trap.
precisely shouldn't pretend that the trap isn't very real, right? But of course it needs to be overcome. It is the golden handcuffs. But I think that there is a big market for the feeling of subversion without the act of it.
Yes. Now, I do think that there are people that don't kind of realize that that's what's going on, who are really in good faith.
Oh yeah. I think almost
making
all
these
of them, by the way.
arguments.
I think
Yeah.
almost all of them. I think it's a subconscious thing.
But I think when you watch a film like this, and it just feels so different sitting in your chair. Like my emotional reaction, I had this big goofy smile on my face the whole time, like I was watching a superhero movie, because I thought that someone was about to win big. Like I was looking at a hero about to take on an evil and win. And as soon as I saw how it was going to frame up, I could not believe my eyes. And it just after 32 years of just all the genuine but so negative discourse around race, it just feels like a light at the tunnel, which is also why it was so funny to see so many people struggle to articulate the class narrative of the movie and who could only kind of process it through the lens of race. I saw a lot of people who really love the movie online who were saying things like, yeah, it's just a really great movie about how, black people can make it, and race, and they were kind of filtering through the lens we normally get.
I thought it did a very, very good job of actually.
It wasn't the movie's fault.
Yeah, no, I mean, a strikingly good job of even just the technical distinction, which I keep hammering now, of the distinction between exploitation and oppression.
Yeah.
Exploitation as a pure economic function that applies to even the most privileged members of the labor force, but literally talks about stolen labor as transferred to profit, and oppression as systems of literal oppression. And obviously they connect and overlap, but I thought they did an amazing job of tearing that out and showing how they intersect, showing how they're distinct. I thought that was, to me, that was the most commendable part of the movie, actually.
Yeah, I think so too, but it's the fact that so many people, and I don't mean this in a judging way, I just mean it's a commentary on where the discourse is, that so many of us don't have the language to talk about things in class terms, even when we sit and watch a movie that's so obviously about class. I mean, even I included a quote from a Terry Crews interview about the movie where he said a lot of really great things, and it was really moving, and he was connecting it to his experiences growing up in Flint, Michigan, and how he recognized himself on the screen. It was a group cast interview. And I noticed that even among members of the cast, with the exception, I think Tessa Thompson got it the most, but people, apart from Boots, were kind of struggling. They weren't talking in explicit class terms. They talked about kind of the oppression and how hard it is to make it. And there's a lot of explicit references to race that weren't even actually often from the movie, or
right.
They were kind of putting that onto the movie because the characters in the movie were largely black.
Right.
But it's interesting to watch, and to me, I'm glad this movie is here because I think it's forcing people to learn to learn the language and learn how to think of their circumstances in ways that are different, and in addition to kind of the racial oppression frameworks that we're at this point as liberals more familiar with.
Right. And I think it's also really important. I have a project I'm working on now where it's also dealing with the distinction that there's so many big arguments and problems right now that just frankly need a systemic material Marxist perspective, or you're not going to get out of predicaments. And not even as a moral perspective, just literally that's the path that's going to be available to deal with some of these things. And then when you go into the sort of still the broad debate, it's it still matters significantly. Ezra Klein, very limited thinker. He's, debunking racism, and Sam Harris is promoting it. In that conversation, I have a lot more things that I would bring to the table in that conversation. They're much more structural. But in the relative sense, I mean,
Yeah,
we have a
you
guy
really won
who's
me over with that that one podcast.
well, of course, and I think that's the dialectic that we have to pursue, and also even noticing the distinctions between like the people that are holding a position in good faith that diagnoses a lot of things correctly and has limits, and then at the same time, this whole other like. I've been noticing the phrase Afro-optimism pop up recently.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and very much in line with what we're talking about. It is in your lane, and it is also in the like newest version of the Moynihan report, Bill Cosby, pull up your pants, Coleman Hughes garbage lane. And it's it's our job across a whole variety of fields to explain like a pre and post critique, intervene where these arguments really matter, and also enlarge the perspective. And there's a lot for us to do. And I do think the movie helps us do that.
I do too. I would love to talk about the film, I think, in a predominantly Black forum with some of the people who I know have pushed back against me for making class analyses online. And because I've seen this trend where there's people who really like the movie but resist the class analysis,
Right.
or really like Ocasio-Cortez but want to see her purely as an identity politics candidate.
Right.
And it's difficult to have those conversations online, but the movie Ocasio-Cortez, figures like this, I feel like they open a door to breaking down people's kind of like preconceived notions about what it means to value a class analysis. And a movie like that, or a person who is both a person of color and a genuine leftist, they personify the contradiction that they think exists between those two things, and enables some walls to be broken down. I'm working on it.
We're doing it. Join us for a lot more. Oh, actually, really quick before we go to the post game, do you consider Terry Crews to be a good actor?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make
I
sure.
love Terry Crews.
Yes,
he's
I
an
do.
American hero.
I do too, but I just wanted to make sure because we're just setting a lot of clear boundaries. So I'm gonna just say, if you're broken up, you're broken up. It doesn't matter who broke up with who or whatever the fuck.
Sure, and you got to
As
deal with the
soon as that-
consequences of your actions on the break.
I will deal with whatever the consequences I choose to deal with, Bree. Excuse you. If I choose to not take responsibility for things, that's my choice. I'll choose that responsibility. Terry Crews is a great actor. A little bit of smoke for the main actor, even though he seems like a really wonderful guy.
I like him a lot.
But if he doesn't play, so you ready? In order to prove his worth to you, the next role he plays should be animated, right?
There are
What was the other word you used?
Look,
Animated and what?
plucky, I think. Look,
Plucky?
Johnny
and
Depp has like
animated.
an Oscar, I think, and he just plays the same character over and over again. That's not a slight.
Ooh.
I feel like the best actors play the same character. I mean, I
Yeah,
saw.
Sure.
that's basically true.
I listened to
Right.
him on Comedy Bang Bang, and he basically, that's him.
He's that dude. All right, then I take back what I said. He's not that great of an actor. Sorry to say. But Bree convinced me. I thought you were great. If you're watching this,
Oh my goodness.
all on her.
Don't-
I thought you were super talented. But
Don't
you know
do
what?
this
Here's
to
what I would
me.
say. I think you're an incredibly likable and talented dude. And in your next role, if you play somebody who is plucky and animated, you can bring us over.